Hey, Cruise team, welcome back. This is Brad. I'm the host of Coach Cruise, and we're going to get into 6 things today that could ruin your cruise. Let's find out what those 6 are next.
I just can't get away from a good time.
All right, so number one thing that can ruin your cruise, just one of the 6 things, because again, any of these 6 things can ruin your cruise. So it doesn't really matter the order. So the first one's going to be getting actually sick. And I don't mean sick by, a hangover, although that is one of the things, right? But getting sick. I mean, there's a lot of germs. You're going to be around thousands of people on a cruise ship, passing those people regularly. So the opportunity to get sick if you're with somebody that is sick is higher, right? So what precautions can you take? Well, leading up to the cruise, make sure you're strengthening your immune system. Take your vitamins, be eating good, healthy food, exercise, all those things. Get your immune system, shined up and ready to go before you get on that cruise. And if you're exposed to any of these new germs or viruses that are going around, your immune system is going to be in a better position to fight those, right? Also, take with you some of those vitamins. I personally right now have one of those little pill boxes that have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, all 7 days. And I put all the different vitamins that I want to take for the day into each little box and just make it real easy and open up the box for that day, make sure I take all those vitamins, I'm good to go. So they're packed, ready to go. And again, give your immune system that little extra boost. Because if you're drinking a lot, especially, you're going to weaken that immune system on the cruise, make it more likely that you could get sick. Now, for you new cruisers, when you go to rooms within the ship, particularly the bathrooms, you're going to notice that they really do a good job of cleaning the ships and keeping them clean and wiping them down all the time. But germs are everywhere and you have to clean constantly to keep them away. One of the things they do to combat you getting germs and getting sick on the ship is when you enter the bathroom or exit the bathroom, they have little napkin dispensers that are usually hanging on the door, just the other side of the door. You can grab one of these little napkins and use it to open the door in or out of the bathroom. And then they have a little wastebasket right below there that after you've used it to open the door, you simply discard it right there in the little wastebasket, and boom, you didn't have to touch a handle that many people may have touched, right? That one of those people could have had some kind of illness that could have gotten you sick if you would have touched it direct contact, right? Take care of yourself before the cruise, during the cruise. Try to drink some water and try to eat a salad once in a while you're on the cruise, right? Something healthy, not just all the heavy food or 100 ice cream cones or whatever. That's also going to benefit your immune system as well. Okay, so that is the first one, and let's go on to number 2. Okay, so jumping on to number 2, and maybe ruining is a little bit of a stretch here because it might not necessarily ruin it. I mean, a cruise ship, just being on a cruise ship, sea days on a cruise ship are wonderful, right? But not doing your research, especially when you're going into ports and you've never been on a cruise before, you want to make sure that you do your research and you want to research the port itself and go on Google or whatever and type in top 10 excursions at in Belize or something like that for cruise ships, and you will get a whole host of vendors that offer excursions. Shore Excursionaire is a popular one. Obviously the cruise lines have their own excursions that they're selling, but you can get an idea of all the fun things that there are to do at that particular port. Even if it's just a beach, if you just want to go to the beach, best beaches in Belize that are free to the public or something like that, or best beaches in Grand Cayman, and whatever the case may be, and learn how to get there via transportation or if there's excursions that go there, or if there's all-inclusive beaches, whatever else like that. Because in most of the cases, when you go into port, you have 8 to 10 hours to enjoy that particular port. So if you go in there with no plan, oh, we'll just walk around and see what we can get into. Well, you can do that. And honestly, you can maybe luck into a really good time doing just that. But going in with a plan, you're going to probably more likely walk away with an experience that you really enjoyed and maximize your time in that particular port. Not just the ports, but the ship itself. Carnival, for example, and all the ships have an app now that you can use, and it tells you all of the events that are going on the ship that day. So if there's a particular show or there's comedy or something else like that, you want to make sure that you make a point to get there and plan your dinner or your lunch or whatever around it, so you're not going to miss out on that fun thing that you could have done, whether it's a movie on the top deck at night, or it's a theater show, or it's comedy, or they have a casino event that you want to take part in. Whatever it may be, you want to make sure to plan for it. Okay, so do your research and you'll be a lot happier and don't feel like you missed out on anything. Okay, so we're going on to number 3, and that is losing track of time. Okay, I'm guilty of this, and actually recently, and I got scolded, and rightfully so, by a few of you and a few other avid cruisers that I'm friends with or whatever, and we actually kind of became peer runners. I hate to admit it. I'm admitting it again. Actually did a little video on it when it actually happened, and it wasn't planned for getting views or anything like that. What had happened was, I always tell people, if you go on a Carnival excursion or a Royal Caribbean excursion or whatever else like that, they guarantee that you will not be left on the ship. If for whatever reason something goes wrong on the excursion, they're not going to leave a group of people that book an excursion through them. And that is one of the biggest, I guess, threats or whatever. Threat, that's a bad word to use there, but that's one of the biggest things, strongest arguments they use to get you to buy their excursions and not buy a competitor's excursion, is they say, well, oh, you might get left if you go with this other group or whatever. And that's really not the case. If these competing excursion companies and vendors, if they ever do get you back late, it's going to destroy their company. They often offer, different excursions that you can't even get on the cruise ships, right? And oftentimes they're cheaper and less crowded. So there are some arguments for doing either one. Some people just feel more comfortable, and it's understandable. I mean, if you miss the ship, that's the worst possible thing that can, well, not the worst thing, but one of the worst things that could possibly happen, right? That will definitely ruin your vacation. So you want to keep track of time. But getting back to that story really quickly, the reason we became peer runners is we did a fishing charter. It was a private, it wasn't like an excursion with an outside vendor or anything like that. It was a private fishing charter that we booked with a friend of ours that actually lives in Cozumel. And the thing was, is we were about an hour's, actually they told us 45 minutes, on the fishing boat from getting back to port. Well, we were about an hour from when we needed to be back on the ship. And so, I'm telling the guy, hey, we need to leave. And he's dilly-dallying and, not seeming to want to go right away. And, another 5-10 minutes go by, and I said, look, dude, no, we need to leave, and we need to leave right now. And I said, maybe it didn't click in before, but we have to be back by this time. And okay, let's go. And they're going, and it seems like he's going as fast as he can go, but their engine on his boat didn't seem that powerful. Long story short, I mean, we got back about 15 minutes later than I hoped we would be back, and we got to Port Maya in Cozumel at the exact time that we were actually supposed to be on the ship. Those of you that have been to Cozumel, Port Maya, it's a long walk through the shops and then down the pier to get on the ship, a very long walk. And so even though we got to the port on time, we were late getting on the ship. So I forget exactly what time we were supposed to be there. Let's say 4:30. We got to the taxi dropped us off at 4:30, but we still had that crazy long walk. So we probably got back about 10 to 15 minutes late. So we weren't crazy late, but it's still concerning because, I mean, they could, pull the dock and drop the ropes and everything else, and you could be stuck in Cozumel because you didn't get back on time, and it would have been our fault. So you want to make sure you note the time. And one of the biggest problems people lose track of time is the difference between the ship time and the port time. So since we were talking about Cozumel, let's do that. Let's say, in Cozumel, it's 4 o'clock, but on the ship, it's 5 o'clock. And let's say, you're supposed to be back on the ship at 5 p.m. Well, you might think that, you have an extra hour or whatever, but with the ship and the port time being an hour different, sometimes people get confused by that. And then they're thinking that, they have extra time when in reality, they might already be a half an hour late. So you really have to make sure you note the ship time compared to the port time when you get off the ship. And that might avoid a disaster for you, which would surely ruin your cruise. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, so motion sickness. Now, for you returning cruisers, you can probably fast forward through this next couple minutes because you may say to yourself, well, I don't have motion sickness, so this isn't going to apply to me. None of my family does, and move on. But if you are a new cruiser, motion sickness is a real thing, okay? And if you have not been on a cruise, you may want to bring some Dramamine and look into some motion sickness medication. And it doesn't mean it's going to mess up your cruise, but if you don't have anything to treat that motion sickness, it could very well mess up your cruise. Now, thankfully, in most cruise ships, they're going to have something for motion sickness, but you don't want to assume, right? You want to make sure that you're prepared, and it's probably going to be a lot cheaper if you get it ahead of time, and you might get better stuff as well. So if you're a new cruiser, make sure if you're not 100% sure whether you could get motion sickness or not, go ahead and get it. The one thing I will say is when you're on a ship, most of the time, I mean, obviously the seas can be rough sometimes, but most of the time, you don't even realize you're on a ship. You're walking through the ship and it feels like you're in a building. I mean, those ships are so massive that they hardly seem to move. So it's not going to affect most people, but it certainly does affect some people. I see people on the ships all the time and they have a little patch behind their ear for the motion sickness, and they seem to be fine. That's all they have to do, and then it doesn't affect them. So just be prepared. So that is one of the tips. Let's move on to the next one. All right, this next one, I promise, has ruined at least 2 vacations for me. They weren't cruises, but they were vacations in cruise type ports, right? One was in Mexico and one was in the Bahamas, but the most recent one was in the Bahamas. And we were staying on the island, and I forget which island it was in the Bahamas, to be honest. But the thing about it was, to this day, I don't know how I got so burnt. The sun in the Caribbean is just different than about everywhere else. In this particular case, we went to the beach and we were in underneath one of those little shady huts, and not at any point did I lay out in the sun full bore at any point. And we didn't leave the relative, what I thought was safety of the hut, with the exception of me jumping in the ocean to cool off like 2 different times. And we may have walked to the bus stop, which I'm thinking maybe that's the only place where I was exposed for any length of time. So with sunscreen, being in a shady hut, only taking a dip a couple times, I got so burnt. I mean, my legs were turning and feet were turning purple. I mean, I just hurt all over. I couldn't hardly move. The rest of the vacation was pretty much ruined. I mean, we couldn't go do anything fun. Certainly couldn't go do anything out in the sun because I was just so burned. So for all of you that, are going on a cruise and you think to yourself, I want to get this amazing tan, especially if you have fair skin like me. I have the Irish skin, so we're going to turn 10 different shades of red before we even think about getting a tan, right? Um, you got to play it safe. You got to play it safe. You really do. Especially early on in the cruise, use the stronger sunblock. Don't stay out for forever in the sun. Experiment with it a little bit. Try to build up a base before you get on the cruise ship, whether it's in a tanning booth or you're laying out a little bit of time. Try to build up a base before you get on the cruise ship. But once you do get on, again, don't just first day out there say, I'm going to get this crazy great tan, and then you burn yourself to a crisp, and then you're just miserable to where, if somebody touches you, you're going to scream, and it's going to mess up your cruise. It's going to mess up your cruise. If you are going to, just say, hey, I have to come back with a tan, this was a mission of mine, well, you risk it the last day or two. So that way, if you do get too burned or something else like that, it's only going to mess up maybe the last day of your cruise as opposed to the entire cruise or a big chunk of it. And you'll be a lot happier that you did it that way. So that's the next tip. And let's get into our final tip right now. And actually, I lied to you. I have two tips for you. So the next tip is going to be, and we talked about don't overdo it in the sun. Don't overdo it eating and drinking. Let's talk about the most obvious one. Well, I mean, I guess they're both pretty obvious, right? One of the best things about cruising is all the food you can get and all the free food that you can have, which for, well, new and old cruisers, honestly, if you have all this amazing food and you can eat unlimited amounts of it, well, you might overdo it a little bit, and which is fine to a point, but you don't want to overeat to the point where you just feel sick, where you walk around like it feels like you got a cinder block in your stomach. That's not a good feeling, right? You want to be able to move freely around the ship and feel relatively good, not like you're weighed down by that cinder block that's in your stomach, right? So eat all you want, try different foods and things like that, but try not to be gluttonous, where you're just miserable from everything that you ate. I mean, enjoy as many foods as you can, but maybe in smaller portions so you don't end up in that situation. Not only that, but staying with the food, you may, get on a cruise ship, and I don't think anybody's getting on a cruise ship. Well, I shouldn't say anybody, but most people aren't getting on a cruise ship thinking, they're going to lose weight or anything like that, right? But you probably also don't want to come back from the cruise and get on the scale and find out you're 15 pounds heavier than you were when you left, right? So you can avoid some of that misery by, again, just being eating some smaller portions, trying and tasting everything that you want to taste, and maybe eating whole portions of the foods you like the most, but just try not to overdo it. And then that goes along with alcohol too. If you buy the alcohol package, there's no rule that says you have to drink every drink that is available to you. Now, we all, myself included, you all get into that trap of feeling like you needed to get your money's worth. Now, we talk about this all the time with the alcohol package on Carnival, and it's the Cheers package. And after gratuities that you pay automatically and the daily charge, it's roughly about $60 a day. So you need to have about 6 drinks or so for you to break even, so to speak, to not lose money on the package. So if you do that, you feel like, okay, well, at least I broke even for today. And there might be other days where you have 9, 10, 12, even 15 drinks. And that makes the package really worth it if you end up drinking that much during a day. If it's a sea day, it's a lot easier to do it, obviously, than on a port day. But speaking of port days, this is what can get you into real trouble. Because especially in the Caribbean islands, when you go on excursions, oftentimes one of the enticing things about a particular excursion might be that it has an open bar or that's an all-inclusive. Well, most of these all-inclusives or these excursions, when they're serving you the alcohol, it's not the good stuff. It's the very, very, very cheap stuff. And as you've probably experienced in the past, drinking cheap liquor can be very dangerous, especially in terms of hangovers and things like that. And like, for example, the rum punch is notorious for just getting people sloppy drunk. And you always see those people that are being wheeled to the edge of the ship and basically dumped off the side, and put into a wheelchair or something like that because they drank way too much at the all-inclusive that they were at or on the catamaran. And I've seen it firsthand and traveled with people, and yeah, it's been ugly, and again, myself included. There's one time I'm bumping into walls and all kinds of stuff, just struggling to get back to the room. I was so intoxicated or whatever from a bunch of that cheap liquor that they give you that you're gonna have unlimited amounts of. So you want to be careful, because what it's going to do, it's going to mess up the rest of your evening, when you get back, for sure, if it is on a particular excursion. And if it's the evening and you've been out all partying or whatever, it's probably going to mess up the whole next day. So if you do take the time and are smart enough to drink some water in between all that alcohol, you might save yourself a great deal of anguish later in the evening or that next morning. When you go to bed after an evening of drinking, make sure you drink a big glass of water or a bottle of water. That's going to make you feel a lot better the next morning. And then if you do wake up with a hangover, one of the things I always advise is, if you can go to the spa and bring, again, a big bottle of water with you, get in the steam room or sauna, whatever it may be, and just chug that whole big bottle of water and sweat out as much of those bad toxins as you can, and slowly get back into things. Just keep drinking water till you feel better, and before you know it, you'll be ready to take on the cruise ship again, right? And get into more fun and crazy adventures. So that is that tip, and let's now go on to the final tip. Oh, you know what? My little... Okay, sorry about that. My little remote control thingy wasn't working there. And anyway, your final tip, and this is one, again, I'm ashamed to say has gotten me a few times, and that is the casino. Now, I'm not saying don't go to the casino. I'm not gonna say that the casino is going to ruin your cruise or whatever else like that, because the casino can be a lot of fun. The last few times I've gone to the casino on the cruise, I've had a lot of fun, but a big part of that reason, I think, is because I haven't spent too much time there. I've gone for an hour, at the most maybe 2 hours at a time, and I'm not losing large amounts of money, within that time. I'm keeping a relative budget and not betting huge amounts, and just enjoying the entertainment part of the gambling, right? They call that entertainment expense that you've probably all heard. The times that I have really gotten hurt going to the casino, and this was usually early on in my early cruises, since I really do enjoy gambling, one of the things that I was doing is I was spending too much time in the casino. And they would give you free drinks. After a while of playing or whatever, you earn free drinks. And, even, I guess one of the, good things you could say about losing a lot of the money that I lost in the past is it got me great cruise rates on future cruises. And obviously I enjoyed cruising. But I eventually wised up and I realized, you know what? I am just spending way too darn much time in this casino. I mean, this is a big, beautiful ship. There's theater shows going on. There's comedy shows going on. There's great violinists playing. There's great other live music going. There's, great Lido deck parties. There's just great people to meet and talk to and have fun with and have a drink with all over the ship. water slides to go down, serenity decks to relax and just, zone out and everything else like that. And I'm missing all that. Because why? Because I'm in a smoky casino gambling. And, I started to realize like, no, I need to stop this. So what's one thing that I could do? Well, one thing, I go on a ship and I do enjoy to some adult beverages, right? So I went ahead and I started buying the Cheers package because most casino players, they only offer you free drinks in the casino. Everywhere else, you have to pay for them. Well, I wasn't paying for drinks anywhere else because I'm like, why should I pay? I get them free in the casino. And then that just meant I was gambling more in the casino, losing more money. But by paying for the Cheers package, even though it was an expense ahead of time that, I was using, that if I'd have just been in the casino, maybe I didn't have to. I was probably saving a lot more money because not only was I getting to enjoy the ship by being all over, I was less time in the casino. And eventually, the more time you're in the casino, eventually they're going to catch up with you and they're going to win money. And it's going to be a lot of your money. Okay, so limit your time in the casino. If you're one of the people that can do good with a budget, then if it's $100 or $50 or even $20 that you go and say, I'm going to play with this amount. When I lose this, I'm going to leave. The problem with that is, you can go in with a budget of, let's say, $100, and you go to the craps table or whatever, and 3 or 4 bad rolls, and it's like, I have $5 left, and you're like, I've been here less than 10 minutes, and then you get out another $100, and before you know it, you're in trouble because you've just lost a lot of money in a very short amount of time. But if you are somebody that has no problem leaving, even if you're only there for 10 minutes or whatever, great, do that. But otherwise, try to limit your time. The last few times I've gone, I've made sure that I'm only in there for an hour or so, and I got the fun out of playing and didn't lose too much money, pretty much broke even, and had a good time at the same time. So that's the final tip. That's one thing that'll definitely ruin your cruise. Not ruin it completely, but if you get off the ship and you've lost way more money than you planned on losing, you're not going to feel good about it. So I hope those returning cruisers, our cruise veterans out there, I hope there's 1 or 2 things that I reminded you about that you might have been like, yeah, I need to pay more attention to that. And for you new cruisers, I hope I hit a few points here that you're going to take note of and make sure you factor in so it doesn't mess up your cruise, so you can enjoy your cruise to the fullest. But it is good that you're doing research right now. So if you're not already a subscriber, this is that part in the video where you're going to minimize me if you're on your phone, or minimize me if you're on your computer, and you're going to see that little subscribe button that hasn't been clicked by you yet, and you're going to hit the little button that says subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you. Love having you on the cruise team. You are an MVP. So if you could just hit that like button and share in any Facebook group, cruise page that you're on, that you feel like these tips might be beneficial to your fellow cruisers, and I will appreciate that very much also. So until next time, cruise team, happy cruising, and I hope to see you on a cruise soon.
I just can't get away from a good time.